Welcome to part one of two videos that are going to teach us the foundation skills that we need in order to factor trinomials. Okay, so our directions here say we need to fill in the blanks to complete the equations, and the first one has been done for us. So if we look at all these equations, we notice that on the right side there is a trinomial. In number one, we have x squared plus 7x plus 12. On the left side, for the first 7 problems, we have one binomial and then we have an empty set of parentheses because we need to figure out what that other binomial is. So our goal here is to figure out what binomial is missing so that when we multiply two binomials together, we end up with the trinomial on the right side of the equation. Now, the first one was already done for us, so the binomial x plus 4 has already been entered. But we're going to check and make sure that that's correct. So the only way to check is to multiply the two binomials. So I'm going to do FOIL. So when I do x times x, I get x squared. On the outside, I get plus 4x. On the inside, I get plus 3x. And for my last two, when I do 3 times 4, I get plus 12. All right, so now let's see if that will simplify to x squared plus 7x plus 12. Let's look at the 4 steps of FOIL. So the x squared was our f for our first step. The plus 4x was the outside. The plus 3x was I for inside. And the 12 was L for last. Now, if you notice, if we add the outside and inside terms together, we arrive at the 7x, which becomes the middle term of our trinomial. So the 7x comes from the 4x plus the 3x. Now, another thing you want to notice is that the x squared in the final answer, that came from multiplying the first two x's. And the last term, the 12, that came from multiplying the 3 times 4. All right, let's try the next one where we have to fill in the blank. Okay, so I know that my empty binomial has to start with an x because that's the only way to arrive at x squared in my trinomial. Now, I also know it's going to be x plus. And the reason why I know it's going to be a plus sign and not a minus sign is because my trinomial x squared plus 10x plus 16 has all positive numbers, okay? So I'm trying to figure out what number will I multiply 8 by in order to get 16. Well, look at that. It's a 2, okay? Maybe you're still not sure where that came from, so let's check this one. So x times x gives me the x squared for my first two terms. On the outside, I get plus 2x. On the inside, I get plus 8x. And my last two is 8 times 2. That's where I get the plus 16. Okay? Now, again, this one, you might have felt really confident doing it, and that's great. I want you to feel confident doing it because you were given the x plus 8 to start with, so you knew that you had to have x plus 2 because that's the only way that you would have been able to multiply to 16 in your last term. Okay, but let's look at a few more things to point out. So again, the x squared came from multiplying the x times the x. The 10x in the middle came from adding the 2x plus the 8x. And the 16 came from multiplying the 8 times 2. Now, notice the 8 and the 2 are very important. So the 10x in the middle comes from adding the 2x and the 8x. And the 16 at the end comes from multiplying the 2 times the 8. Okay, that's really important. Okay, what I want you to do is keep that in mind, that the middle term comes from adding the numbers and the last term comes from multiplying the numbers. And I want you to pause the video and I want you to complete numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so you've paused the video. So now let's reveal the missing binomials in these problems so you can check your work. Okay, great. All right, now we're going to move on to problem number 8. In problem number 8, notice that the numbers are missing in the binomials. So we've started out with an A and an A in problem 8 because the trinomial begins with a squared. But now we have to figure out what the two numbers are that go in the binomials. Okay, so there's a couple things we want to think of. So the trinomial we're aiming for is a squared minus 6a plus 8. Now that 8 comes from the product of two numbers. All right. Now in the middle we have this negative 6a. Negative 6a comes from the sum of two numbers. So again, product means we multiplied two numbers together to get 8. Sum means we added two numbers together to get negative 6 in the middle. But the numbers are the same. So we're looking for two numbers, the same pair of two numbers, that will give us a product of 8, positive 8, and will give us a sum of negative 6. So we're multiplying and we're adding. Okay, so let's take a look at this. When I do a times a, I know I'm going to get my first term, which is a squared. Now, to get my last term, 8, I have to think of all the numbers that will possibly multiply to 8. In numbers 1 through 7, it was kind of easy because one of the numbers was already given to us. But in problem number 8, we don't know any number. So we have to think of all the possible ways to multiply to 8. So this is where we make a little chart or a table of factors. Okay, so I drew a little T-chart, and I know that I want the two numbers to multiply to 8. So I have to think of all the possible factors of 8. Well, 1 and 8 will multiply to 8, but also 2 and 4 will multiply to 8. So those are my possibilities. Now, I have to pick the correct pair of numbers that will also generate a sum of negative 6. So that means when I add the two numbers together, I will get negative 6. So where's the negative come from? If I have to multiply to a positive 8 and add to a negative 6, well, the only really way I can do that is with two negative numbers. So I'm going to choose the pair of factors that are 2 and 4. But if I make them both negative, now when I multiply negative 2 times negative 4, I get the product of positive 8 that I want, but I will get the sum of negative 6 that I want. So I'm going to get a minus 2 and a minus 4. Let's check. So a times a is a squared. On the outside, I get minus 4a. On the inside, I get minus 2a. And for my last two, I get plus 8. And look at that. If I combine like terms in the middle, the negative 4a plus the negative 2a, that gives me the negative 6a that I was looking for. So I have correctly factored the trinomial a squared minus 6a plus 8, and I factored it into two binomials, a minus 2 and a minus 4. Okay, so I know that that one works. I'd like you to pause the video again and try problems 9, 10, and 11. Okay, now let's check your work for 9, 10, and 11. Okay, so hopefully you were able to get the correct binomials. Let's try one more. Okay, so I have two empty binomials, and I want the product of those binomials after I do FOIL, I want them to equal x squared plus 7x minus 18. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing here is I'm factoring the trinomial x squared plus 7x minus 18, and I'm factoring it into two binomials. So at this point you can pause it, try it on your own, and then come back and check, or you can just follow along. All right, so I know that I need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 18, but at the same time they need to add to positive 7. So I'm going to make a list of factors for the number negative 18. So I can multiply to 18 by multiplying 1 and 18, 2 and 9, or 3 and 6. Now, I haven't done anything with the signs yet. I need these two numbers to multiply to negative 18. That means one of the numbers has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. And then when I add them together, I need to add up to positive 7. So I need a sum of positive 7. So if I take the numbers 9 and 2, if I make the 2 negative 2 and the 9 positive 9, now I have the numbers that I want. If I add negative 2 and positive 9, I get the sum of positive 7. But if I multiply negative 2 and positive 9, I get the product of negative 18. So my binomials are x minus 2 and x plus 9. Or, let's say you thought of it x plus 9 first. You can also write x plus 9 and x minus 2. On your own paper, I challenge you to do the check. So FOIL those out and just make sure you arrive at x squared plus 7x minus 18. But either one of these is the correct answer. X minus 2 times x plus 9 or x plus 9 times x minus 2.